France has crushed Morocco's World Cup dreams, defeating the North African side 2-0. They will lock horns with Argentina in the grand final on Sunday.
The first hearings connected to the corruption scandal engulfing the European Parliament take place at the law courts of Brussels on Wednesday.
Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu has been sentenced to jail and banned from politics. The opposition leader has long been seen as a challenger of Turkey's president. Reigning champions France kept their composure to edge out Morocco 2-0 and book their place in the final of the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. AC Milan defender Theo Hernandez finished from close range to give Les Bleus an early lead, but the African side refused to buckle. Didier Deschamps' men were pushed all the way and had to wait until the 79th minute before sealing the win. Morocco, the first African side to reach a World Cup semi-final, will be looking to end on a high note when they take on Croatia on Saturday, while France and Argentina will lock horns in the showpiece match on Sunday.
Now that Morocco's fairy tale World Cup run has come to an end, in which the Atlas Lions became the first ever African nation to reach the semi-finals, the stage is now set for a finals clash between two powerhouse footballing nations, the 2018 champions France against perennial favorites Argentina. The marquee matchup also pits two of the game's biggest stars against each other. On one side, you have 35-year-old superstar Lionel Messi. The 7-time Ballon d'Or winner is still seeking his first World Cup title. He's going to try to capture that against one of the game's brightest, youngest stars, his 23-year-old PSG teammate Kylian Mbappe, hoping to lead Les Bleus to their second straight World Cup championship. Adil Halim, Euronews, Doha.
The European Union is far from a consensus on its proposed gas price cap. That is according to Poland's Prime Minister, who spoke to Euronews. EU ministers have been discussing a proposed cap on the price of gas for the past month. And earlier this week, negotiations stalled over fears that a cap could cause suppliers to bypass the bloc for other buyers.
The cap on gas price should be found somewhere in the middle of our expectations and some expectations of Germany and the Netherlands and the others. However, the way how they stubbornly block this is, to me, quite worrisome, because I believe that this is still, we are still far from finding a compromise on gas price cap.
The initial plan put forward a price cap of €275 per megawatt, with some ministers calling for the level to be lowered to around €200 per megawatt. The European Council is set to meet again on Thursday.
Big expectations at the law courts of Brussels on Wednesday for the first hearings connected to the corruption scandal engulfing the European Parliament. Eva Kaili, a now former vice president of the EU institution, was expected to appear before a judge for the first time since her arrest. She wasn't there, though. She stands accused of accepting large sums of money to illicitly lobby on behalf of a Gulf state, allegedly Qatar. The three other suspects were present, however, including her partner and parliamentary advisor Francesco Giorgi, ex-MEP Antonio Panzeri, and according to Italian media reports, Niccolo Figa Talamanca, Secretary-General of NGO Peace Without Justice. The Belgian police have so far seized €1.5 million in cash, following at least 20 raids carried out since last Friday, including a suitcase full of money. The searches have been conducted in several private houses, as well as in the premises of the European Parliament in Brussels. On Tuesday, the French police sealed off more offices at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. The Belgian police have arrested a total of 6 people since Friday. 2 of them, including Kylie's father, have since been released. The other 4 have been in jail since Friday.
In Kiev, 5 buildings were damaged in drone strikes just as the city's workday was about to begin. There were no casualties reported, but according to President Zelensky, the situation could have been much worse.
The terrorists started this morning with 13 drones. According to initial information, all 13 were shot down by our Ukrainian air defense systems. Well done, I'm proud.
And as winter rages on and temperatures drop, dozens of countries have pledged €1 billion to Ukraine during a donors' conference in Paris, so it can keep its people fed, warmed, empowered.
Winter is coming. How can people survive? Lord, what do they want from us? They do not let Ukrainians live as a nation.
Fighting in Ukraine has forced around 6.5 million people to flee their homes.
French prosecutors have searched the headquarters of President Emmanuel Macron's Renaissance Party and the Paris office of consultancy firm McKinsey. The dual operations are part of parallel investigations into the role of these companies in French politics. One of the inquiries relates to the government's use of consultancy agencies in general, while the other focuses on their involvement in the 2017 and 2022 presidential election campaigns. The probes stem from a Senate report into the use of public funds for consultancy services and whether McKinsey enjoyed particular benefits from Macron's party. Istanbul's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu has been sentenced to jail and imposed with a political ban, effectively barring him from standing in next year's presidential election. İmamoğlu has long been seen as a strong potential challenger to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He was handed 2 years, 7 months and 15 days in prison for calling officials fools in a press release 3 years ago, after he won a municipal election. Ahead of the verdict, thousands of his supporters rallied outside the headquarters. Across the Bosphorus, riot police were stationed outside the courthouse. İmamoğlu has called the ruling political and unlawful, saying it was a sign of the current conditions in the country. His 2019 win to lead Istanbul was a historic blow to Erdogan and the Justice and Development Party, which had controlled the capital for a quarter century. İmamoğlu will continue heading Turkey's largest and most fabled city, while his appeal winds its way through the courts.
Iran has been expelled from the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women with immediate effect. The UN voted 29 in favour of removing the country for the remainder of its term till 2026. The campaign was led by the United States and follows Tehran's brutal crackdown on women-led protests. The forum has 45 countries which participate, and Iran only joined 9 months ago. The proposal has been strongly criticised by Iran, with Tehran calling the decision illegal and unprecedented. Russia, China, Nicaragua and Belarus have branded the move as a political one. Nationwide protests followed the death of a young woman who died in police custody in September. Masha Amini was arrested for allegedly violating the country's strict dress code for women. According to several NGOs, more than 400 people have been killed, more than 2,000 have been arrested, with 11 of them sentenced to death. 2 people have been executed already.
It has never been so easy to inform, yet so difficult to do it in freedom. In a year of war, violence and censorship, 2022 has been disastrous for freedom of information. That's according to the annual Reporters Without Borders report. 65 journalists have been kidnapped around the world, 49 reported missing, 57 murdered, and a record 533 in jail. The situation is of most concern in Asia. China, Myanmar and Iran top the list of countries with the most jailed journalists. Belarus in Europe comes 5th. Women represent 14.6% of journalists imprisoned, an increase of almost 30% since last year. The map changes quite a bit when it comes to the most dangerous places to practice the profession. Almost half of the 57 journalists killed this year worked in Latin America. Mexico leads this dismal ranking for another year, with 11 journalists killed, followed by a country at war, Ukraine, and then Haiti. In war-torn Syria and Yemen, 3 have been reportedly killed. Reporters Without Borders say nearly 80% of media professionals killed around the world this year were deliberately targeted for the stories they were covering, particularly organised crime and corruption cases.